Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 39 of the Dump and Chase podcast. The Phantoms gave the Eastern Conference leading Chicago Steel fits all weekend and came away with 3 out of a possible 6 points. Is the team finally starting to connect the dots on the ice? Another challenge looms this weekend as the Team USA under-18s come to the Covelli Center for a 3-game series. We will go over all of this, plus we take a look at the ups and downs of the Phantoms' history of tendered players. All this and more starting right now. My name is Sam Olmstead, and joining me as always is a man who really needs no introduction. So let's take a look at the Chicago series. No, obviously, Mr. Justin Irwin. How we doing, buddy?
I mean, 3 points against Chicago, so, doing better. I don't know, you just kind of caught me off guard there with the...
Okay.
We should really rehearse these things.
Yeah, I think I'd take the fun out of it.
I know.
So before we jump into the 3 games this past weekend with Chicago, just some little bit of housekeeping from the weekend. First off, I didn't get to make it to the game on Friday night. It was actually the first time in a while I haven't made it to a game. So I was at home watching on Hockey TV. Very cool thing happened. I was kind of messaging back and forth during the second intermission with Matt Lipsack. And then once the period started, I'm just sitting there listening to the game. And all of a sudden, myself and then the podcast and, me and Justin both get a shout out on Hockey TV from Matt right there at the beginning of the third period. So that kind of took me by surprise. But definitely big ups to Matt there for giving us a little bit of a shout out, giving us a little free advertising on the main broadcast there.
Yeah, definitely cool, especially with the way that game went. So we think that's really cool. Thank you, Matt.
Then the game on Saturday, Justin again got to meet his biggest fan. I took my 4-year-old son Dash with me to the game. For the past year or so, he has only seen Justin as a cartoon drawing on a YouTube video. So kind of blew his mind to actually see him in person. I'd have to say my favorite part is just like he kept like reaching out to like touch your arm. Like, are you actually real? Or because he's seen you before, but it's been a while. He doesn't remember. So
yeah. Definitely highlight of the weekend for me. Yeah. Now I know how SpongeBob feels.
If he had a stick, he would have been poking you with it. Like, is it real? Is he actually there? Or
yeah, I mean, it was kind of fun seeing him again. Me sitting there with the camera taking pictures while, he runs away from you and chasing after mascots and things. So
yeah, that was like trying to herd cats on Saturday.
Glad it's not me.
Then some actual team news. For the first time this season, Colin Purcell was in the lineup for the Phantoms. He was the backup for Kyle Chevette, did not get into the game on Sunday. But yeah, it now looks like whatever Colin Purcell had going on, he's healed up and he is back with the team in uniform.
Yeah, I mean, we have yet to see him play, but seeing him on the line chart was like, yes. So, yeah, I mean, it looks like things might be coming together, maybe a little goaltender battle to see who will be his backup. I don't know. Maybe we'll see him trying to fight back to see who's the top goaltender. Chavette played pretty good over the weekend, I thought. Scholl has not been bad this season, so this will be something interesting to watch going forward.
And another bit of roster news. We pretty much found out, I don't think it's really been made internet official so much, but people that we talked to pretty much confirmed. Cade Lemmer it will be moving on to Wichita Falls in the North American Hockey League. Yeah, so he's off to Wichita Falls, Texas. Actually, the hometown of one of my favorite bands, Bowling for Soup. So I just thought I'd throw that out there since since I get to say Wichita Falls. I guess I can throw Bowling for Soup out there.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. It just over time, it just seemed like, as highly touted as he was coming out of Wisconsin high school hockey, it just seemed like he just never really got his footing in the United States Hockey League. In 42 games played, he only had 3 points, 101 penalty minutes, unfortunately, a slew of suspensions. I mean, there were times you could see the talent was there, just for whatever reason, it just didn't seem to translate to this level.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, we had noted that he was much improved this season over last season, but yeah, it just never started to click. I think he was contributing in other areas other than scoring, but we need scoring. There's, no shame in playing down in the null, so I think he'll kind of fit in pretty well down there in Wichita.
So actually, in this going with the Bowling for Soup theme here, in this sense, instead of going from Texas to Ohio, he went backwards. So
yeah,
I think that'll be the last of my Bowling for Soup references in this episode, but that one just popped into my head. Also, another one, we haven't heard anything from the team yet, but this is coming from this player's now former team in Belarus. Sergei Kuznetsov, I believe 18, 19 years old. He's a 02 birth year. Apparently is coming to Youngstown. We really don't have much information on this other than his former team in Belarus saying that he is heading this way.
Yeah, I mean, I normally wouldn't have even posted this to Twitter, but I needed something to stir the pot this week, so I'll be honest. So, yeah, I mean, if it's true, he's put up some decent points so far in the Belarus Major League. So one of those weird things that just pops up during the week and you got to run with it.
Okay, so going back to this past weekend, Chicago Steel come to town for 3 games. The game on Friday, the Phantoms lose 4-2. Not the greatest game we have seen. There were a few things to point out. For one, Chicago, whose power play is just, I don't know, it's like playing easy mode on a video game. Their power play is just absolutely ridiculous. But on Friday, the Phantoms' penalty kill held them to 0 for 5 on the power play. The Phantoms, in all reality, I would say for the second half of that game, Youngstown really controlled the play. They could just not get the puck in the back of the net. Like, it's just, they were getting the opportunities, they had the chances, they just couldn't finish them.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to kind of the start of the game. They did make adjustments. Like you said, it just never went in. We were never out of that game. And that's kind of something I've harped on in the past, where we've had winnable games.
So then we get to Saturday. Great game played by the Phantoms. They ended up beating Chicago in that game 5-2. In that game, Chicago was 2 for 5 on the power play, but those were the only 2 goals they scored the entire game. Second period was not so much of a hockey game as it was a UFC match. 69 penalty minutes handed out in the second period. Couple of scraps that went on. But then going into the third period, the game was tied at 2. And the thing that stood out to me in this game more than anything, Phantoms put up 3 goals in the third period. They held Chicago to only 3 shots on goal and no goals, period, in the third. Which, I mean, everything about this game to me, that was probably the most impressive of it. Yusako Ando finally picks up his first goal of the season. And I swear to God, he looked 6 inches taller once he scored that goal. Like, that weight that's just kind of been sitting on his shoulders all season. He grew a few sizes taller, I think, after that goal.
I noticed going into that game, he was a couple strides faster, too.
One more player I want to mention from this weekend. I mean, it was an absolute team effort in this game, but one player I want to bring up is Jaden Grant. So far this season, coming into this weekend, he only had 1 assist. That was it for his point output. This weekend, 2 goals, 1 assist in 3 games. To me, Jaden looked like a completely different player. He looked absolutely possessed out on the ice. I got to meet Jaden a few weeks ago before he had come off the injured list. Real nice kid. And a lot of what I was told was how hard he was working to get back, and just the effort he's been putting in really shone through in a big way on Saturday.
Yeah, effort is the word. the moment he hits the ice to the moment he gets off. He's giving 100%. And this is not just because his billet parents sit in our section.
Yeah.
But no, it was obvious. I mean, he hits the ice. He has 2 really good penalty kills. Just absolute effort. Comes back, scores a goal. So, one of the only 2 goals in the game on Friday. Really, I think probably the best player on the ice on Friday, hands down.
So going into Sunday's game, that was a 4-3 loss in overtime. The Phantoms went down 1-0 early, picked up 3 straight goals in the second to go up 3-1. Ando picks up another one. You want to hope, a goal in 2 straight games. You want to hope that scoring touches back now moving forward. I think the noticeable thing in the game on Sunday, and this was both sides, Youngstown and Chicago, there really seemed to be some tired legs in the third period. The pace that we had kind of gotten used to over the previous 2 games, by the time it hit that third period, that pace slowed considerably. Overtime, especially there at the end, I think Youngstown just kind of ran out of gas, just kind of bad giveaways in their own zone, in the neutral zone on the 3-on-3. Leading to Chicago's goal in overtime to pick up that extra point. But all in all, you put the entire weekend together. I mean, me personally, going into it, I was thinking if we could pick up 1 or 2 points, I'd be happy. So I think getting 3 out of 6 overall, I think confidence-wise, could be a very big boost for this team moving forward.
Yeah, the overtime loss, like you said, it was whoever had more gas in the tank. The whole weekend was a war of attrition, so especially after Saturday night, let's face it, there was a lot of bad refereeing going on, a lot of no calls, particularly on one side. And that led to Sunday, kind of brutal. I think you mentioned MMA, so it was a hard weekend. 3 points against a team as good as Chicago. You've got to at least feel a little bit positive about that.
So right now, we will take a quick look at where everything stands in the Eastern Conference. It's a little early to, still a little early in the season to be scoreboard watching, but just kind of taking a look where everybody's at right now. Chicago, of course, sits atop the Eastern Conference, 34 points. Obviously, this past weekend, going 2-1, picking up 4 points with Youngstown. Muskegon's sitting in second with 30 points. They split a weekend series with the Team USA under-17s. Green Bay in third place, 24 points. Their 2-game series with Dubuque this past weekend was postponed due to COVID, which I believe is the first time in about at least a month and a half, I want to say, that there's been a COVID-related postponement in the league. As far as there's been a couple weather related, but I want to say it's been like at least a month and a half since there was a COVID postponement. So
yeah, I was going to mention that there was a couple weather issues, but we're pretty used to that in the USHL. So COVID's a whole new thing. So, but I mean, things have definitely improved on that front.
Yeah, so that's Green Bay sitting in third place, 24 points. Team USA, that is, of course, the combined of the under-17s and the under-18s. They're sitting in fourth place with 22 points. Again, splitting the weekend series with Muskegon. Dubuque in fifth place, 16 points. Again, their series with Green Bay postponed. They played Waterloo on Tuesday, getting a 5-4 win there. And then Youngstown sitting in last place with 12 points. Again, picking up 3 out of a possible 6 against Chicago. So, again, not so much scoreboard watching, but what is, just looking at what is going on right now, at least if anything, only the top 4 teams in the conference this season will get into the playoffs. So right now, Youngstown, 10 points out of 4th place. But at the same time, this coming weekend, the Phantoms have Team USA coming to town for 3 games. So you play them the way you played Chicago. And this is very pie in the sky right now. This is not me making a prediction, but you rattle off 3 straight wins this weekend. You go from being 10 points out of that 4th spot to only 4 points out of that 4th spot with a lot of hockey left to play. So by no stretch of the imagination is Youngstown out of anything yet. It's still, we're still not that far along in the season. We're getting there, but no. So, I mean, even as bad as this beginning has been, and if you look at Dubuque's start to their season was even worse than ours. In a lot of respects, they've been able to rattle off some wins lately. They've been playing better. So, I mean, by no stretch of the imagination is Youngstown out of anything yet.
No, I've certainly seen a lot stranger in this league. So yeah, especially after last weekend, we saw some of the pieces start to click. Purcell gets in the lineup. Who knows what the roster will look like, but we have a lot of weapons, some unknowns, and things are starting to kind of look like we can put on a run here.
So now we thought we'd have a little bit of fun. We're going to go through here and take a look at the Youngstown Phantoms tender signings through the years, kind of go through each one. And we're going to be looking at this in the scope of the players' time with Youngstown, not necessarily what they did after their time with the Phantoms. Just a brief refresher for anybody that needs it, because the Phantoms did not, in fact, sign a tender this season. Team signing a tender is basically signing a kid to a team, and the kid would have to be eligible for the upcoming Phase 1 or Futures draft. And then I believe by signing someone to a tender contract, it's what they have to play in at least 55%.
Correct. Yeah.
Of games, in that upcoming season. These are typically reserved for kids with very high potential, very high ceilings. These aren't just handed out to anybody. Yeah, we'll just kind of go through, basically go by player and see, when it was all said and done, if it was, if that pick, was worth it, I guess we'll say. So probably the most controversial one on this list, as far as whether it was worth it or not, would be the Phantoms' first tender pick in 2012, Kyle Connor.
Yeah.
This Kyle Connor kid, I guess he did some good things with the team. Would you call him would you say this was a successful tender signing for the Phantoms back in 2012?
Yeah, and just to point out, he had special waivers. He actually started at age 15. Just simply phenomenal to watch.
But yeah, Kyle spent 3 seasons with the Phantoms, 174 games overall, 82 goals, 113 assists, 195 points. 2014, 2015, he was a highly contributing member of the Phantoms team that won a USHL record 17 straight games. The season the Phantoms won the Anderson Cup. 2014, 2015, also, he was the USHL Forward of the Year and the Player of the Year. And he holds the Phantoms record for points in a season with 80 and career at 195. So, yeah, I'd say for right out of the gate, first tender pick, I would say, without much hesitation, that one worked out pretty well for Youngstown.
Yeah, his tender year was my first year as a season ticket holder, and watching him develop over those years, it really was kind of the bullet point, exclamation mark on just how good this league was.
Okay, so now these next handful of players, this was before my time watching the team. So, Justin, this is going to be on you. The Phantoms signed a second tender player. Teams could sign up to 2 per season. The second one they took in 2012 was JJ Pikanich. Spent 2 seasons with the Phantoms, 123 games, 30 goals, 43 assists, 73 points overall. Thinking back then, what was your impression of JJ Pikanich?
Hard hat, lunch pail kid, contributed on offense, pretty much everywhere. Great work ethic, definitely worth the tender. We gave up a second draft pick in the futures for that one. So, yeah, definitely worth it.
Okay, so you get to explain this next one. This was in 2013. When I posed this name to you, you made it a point that I had to word it a certain way on here. So 2013, almost Ryan Moore.
Yeah, and this is just kind of word of mouth. There were press releases. We had signed a player named Ryan Moore. almost immediately this evaporated. What happened was he, pretty quick after he signed the tender, decided he was going to go to the OHL, I believe the Windsor Spitfires. Fortunately for the Phantoms, we had not filed the paperwork yet. So ink was not dry on the paper yet, so to speak, and that just disappeared.
So moving on to 2014, that would be defenseman Ty Farmer. He was around my first year, but I was still playing catch up that year as trying to, looking back and remembering players. I was playing catch up with the roster. So honestly, Ty wasn't one I remember all that much from my first season there. Ty spent 3 seasons with the Phantoms, 87 games, 15 points, was a plus 14 in that time. Halfway through the 16-17 season, he was traded to Muskegon, played the 17-18 season with Fargo. That was the year Fargo beat Phantoms for the Clark Cup. We don't really need to go into that too much, but Justin, what do you remember about Ty Farmer? What was this pick worth it in the time he was here?
That's a hard one to qualify. I mean, yeah, he was a plus defenseman, limited playing time sometimes, injury, sometimes, I don't know. He did kind of a couple times in his last season with the Phantoms, he was moved up to forward. I thought he might have made a great, third, fourth line forward, maybe better than a defenseman. But he was just kind of the odd man out at that point on defense, I think. So, yeah, he got traded to Muskegon. Free agent, ended up in Fargo. I give that one kind of a mixed. Yeah, we got playtime out of him. So, yeah.
Okay, so 2015, Jacob Tortora played no games with the Phantoms. Ended up, he was poached by Team USA. I know this is another story you like telling, and your never-ending love for the NTDP program. If you want to talk about that now.
Yeah, still kind of a touchy subject. Yeah, so we signed the kid to a tender, gave up a phase 1 draft pick. Somebody bails out of the NDTP. They go, hey, we have a spot open. Here you go. And yeah, by word of mouth, I hear we got a little bit of cash and a consolatory after the fact draft pick, which I think was Jack Nisbet, who went on to play D3 college. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, the Team USA. But yeah, I digress. Team USA comes in after the fact, says, hey, we like this guy. We want him to come play for us. No other team in the USHL would be able to do that. So I saw him play for us in camp, some exhibition. Really talented, creative, smaller player. Just really kind of some moves you would not see any other player making. I think they stamped that out of him up there. So
moving on to 2016, we start to get into more of the names that I'm familiar with, starting with Curtis Hall. Curtis spent 2 seasons with the Phantoms, 113 games, 20 goals, 32 assists. I tried to sit and think what I could say about Curtis. There's a ton you could say about him. Curtis was the definition of a player that his contributions on the ice didn't always show up on the score sheet. If I'd have to sum up Curtis in a nutshell, I would just say, irregardless of who he was on the ice with, he was always the smartest person on the ice, hands down.
Yeah, and sometimes the smart play was, throwing your weight around. Sometimes it's going around him. Sometimes it's not going at him at all. But yeah, had vision, great hands.
So we joked, obviously we joked about Kyle Connor being the controversial one on this list. This next one may actually be probably for us the most controversial one on this list. This was the Phantom's second tender signing in 2016. That is forward Max Ellis. Max spent 2 seasons with the Phantoms, played in 107 games, 22 goals, 32 assists. Max's time in Youngstown ended as part of a trade with Central Illinois that had taken place earlier in the season. Once the season was over, it ended up that a player to be named later to be sent to Central Illinois ended up being Max. Started the season with Central Illinois, was only there for a few games, then was traded to Lincoln, was only there for a handful of games, and then was traded to Muskegon. This was all in a matter of, 2 months before he finally landed with Muskegon. Max had some good points on the ice. He could produce. There were, and we'll emphasize there were rumors as far as locker room issues, maturity issues. We will emphasize they were rumors, but as far as being told these rumors, they were fairly consistent with each other. Yeah, and just when you kind of look at it, I mean, how many times do you see a tendered player, a player that was a tender player that the team gives up a draft pick for, they end up trading away 2 seasons later.
Yeah, exactly. We put in a bit of effort, I think, in trying to bring him along. Yeah, we did get production out of him on the ice. I mean, the kid had, skills, especially one-on-one. He was a really, really good shootout guy. But like you said, the rumors were all too consistent, all too frequent, and multiple sources. And that seemed to follow him around through, his next team or two.
Okay, so moving on to 2017, and this would be a player everybody is very familiar with. That would be Trevor Kuntar. Trevor spent 3 seasons with the Phantoms, 148 games overall, 49 goals, 44 assists, 93 points overall. Yeah, in a nutshell, I'd say, this was a good signing for, this was a good tender signing for Youngstown. Very easy to say that he worked out for the Phantoms in his 3 seasons here.
Yeah, really fun to watch play. Really dynamic player on the ice. Skating was excellent. Stick handling, shooting. Again, just, all around fun to watch.
Now, the next one will be a little, not so much tricky, but we can't really write the final act to this play with this player. 2018's tender signing Ben Schoen, who currently is still with the Phantoms in his 3rd season. As of this recording, 84 games with the Phantoms, 12 goals, 36 assists. Ben's tender year 2 seasons ago was pretty nondescript until probably about the last month and a half of the season. He really started to get the hang of the USHL, started putting up goals at a pretty good clip there at the end of the season. So there was a lot of excitement for him going into last season. And then, of course, 3 games in, takes that open ice hit, ends up with the broken collarbone. He's out until after the New Year's. Coming back after the New Year's, took a handful of games for him to get his feet back underneath of him. Once he did, started throwing up points left and right, and then the season ends due to COVID. So doesn't get to finish out the season. Started out the first handful of games this season injured. Came back and he's right there at the top as far as points on the Phantoms. I can't be with him still being on the team. I guess, his full story with the Phantoms isn't fully written yet, so I don't think we can say either way. So far, when he's managed to be on the ice, it's, obvious that he's a special player.
Yeah, and I mean, the injuries have definitely slowed things down. We've kind of seen this year through this previous stretch. He looks a little bit frustrated. And, that's understandable. But yeah, we know what kind of potential he has. Hopefully, he hits his stride here real soon. at the end of his tender season, you really knew that this was not a mistake on the tender side. Maybe just a little bit of bad luck. Pretty sure he'll be able to bounce back.
And then the Phantom's most recent tender signing, which is a dead horse that we have buried and dug back up to beat again quite a few times on this show. 2019's tender signing Davis Codd. He was with the Phantoms for a grand total of 10 days. The most athletic thing he did was signing his name on a contract. Of course, 10 days later, he took off for Saginaw in the OHL. And again, like we've pointed out, when it was all said and done, we kind of looked at Yusaku Ando more as our tender signing last season. Ended up putting up more points than Codd did with Saginaw. Ando's still playing this year, and Codd's in the OHL. He's not playing, but I guess he's getting in a lot of golf right now. Screaming at windmills and verbally abusing animatronic dancing Dutch children, whatever he's got going on. So yeah, I'd say this one, I would call that one. I think I feel pretty safe calling that one a flop.
It is what it is. T-bone there. Yeah, that was kind of a T-boner.
Okay, so once again, we look away from the past, look towards the future. This coming weekend, we have Team USA, the under-18 squad, coming to town. And as always, from a couple years ago, we're always skeptical as to if they'll actually show up. But once again, just another reason to take a dig at them for the stunt they pulled a couple years ago. But anyways, so far this season, the Phantoms have only played the under-18s once. That was back on January 3rd. It was a 5-2 loss for the Phantoms. Schoen and Zmelik had the 2 goals for the Phantoms in the game. That was Bennett Zmelik's first goal as a Phantom in that game. Both power play goals, too. But yeah, this weekend, Friday, the game is at 7:05. Saturday, again, a 7:05 start time. That is Hockey Fights Cancer Night. And, of course, Drink at the Rink, dollar beers, all that good stuff. And then the game on Sunday is a 4:05 start. Just coming off this 3-game series with Chicago, now we have a 3-game series with the under-18s, which if you separate them out from the under-17s, has been, just looking at their record and their numbers, so far they have been fairly dominant this season.
Yeah, I mean, that's typically the case. I know this is not a typical year, but the 5-2 loss wasn't obviously our worst performance of the year. Building off of what we've done the past couple of weeks, I think if we just kind of play them clean, not let them get under our skin, I think we'll do okay. And, I always say, you can't really fight these kids in face cages. No matter what the outcome of the fight, you always lose, at least with the refs. So try to keep your emotions in check. Just concentrate on playing hockey. And I think we'll get some points out of this weekend, too.
Okay, so now as we come down to the end of the episode, it's time for another segment of Ask Justin. Okay, so Justin, this week, our question comes from hardcore Phantoms fan of the podcast, friend of ours, Carrie Glenn. So Justin, Carrie wants to know which USHL team do you or did you always look forward to when they would come to Youngstown to play the Phantoms?
First off, probably Dubuque. This is going back to 12-13. Well, I mean, maybe even 11-12. We played them a lot. There were a lot of really, really close, tight games. I remember they had this one guy, the Latvian locomotive, Zemgus Gergensens. Say that 5 times fast. He plays for the Buffalo Sabres. Really big power forward, stereotypical plow right through your defense guy. We had Matt O'Connor on in net, Sean Romeo, just really, really great battles. 12-13, there was Eastern Conference Finals. We lost 3-2, but those 2 games that we won were the only 2 that Dubuque lost in the entire playoffs, and just really some of the best hockey I've ever seen. Outside that, I miss the Indiana Ice. Quality franchise, or a lot of really great players, good people, but such is junior hockey.
Is the Indiana Ice officially out of the league, or they did the whole, they were shutting down for a year, they were going to restructure and hopefully come back stronger, and then every year after that there'd be like a press release written on the back of a napkin saying,
dormant.
Dormant, yeah.
Dormant, yeah. Yeah, the organization, they never officially folded. The league was always like, we'll welcome you back at any time, but they never found an arena to play in. I believe their franchise agreement got transferred or eventually was negated. Officially, I don't know, but yeah, there's very little chance you'll ever see them
that was
in the same form.
Everybody pretty much knew they were gone, but like every year, like in the middle of summer, there would just be some statement written down on like a crumbled up piece of paper that said, that said that they were still working on, trying to come back and be a viable franchise. And
the USHL fans were always like, yes, yeah, great, a good team, central location, yeah, they're gone.
Okay, and that is all the time we have for this episode. We will be back next week to recap this weekend's games, and be sure to keep an eye out as we'll be welcoming Phantoms team president Andrew Goldman back to the show, hopefully in the next few weeks. The last time we spoke with Andrew on an episode was March of last year when the season was postponed. We'll talk with him about what has taken place behind the scenes, to get the team to where they are now in this COVID world. So definitely be looking out here within the next few weeks for that. The Dump and Chase podcast is brought to you by HockeyFan.com. We're also syndicated by Ohio Hockey Digest in the Phantom section. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell, and you'll know right away when a new episode is released. Also, make sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook. The links are in the description. So until next time, for Justin Irwin, I'm Sam Olmstead. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you all next week.
So long.
Wow, you work on that one all week?
Yeah. By all week, you mean, oh shit. I should have actually thought about this like more than 10 seconds ago. Yeah.